viewers. My name is Patiswa Mpahlwa from Buffalo City Metro District. Welcome to ECDoE Broadcast Studio. Today's lesson is about map calculations. I will be covering this topic for your full understanding. Okay, let's start with distance. When you are in an exam room, you are expected to understand fully how to measure distance. And when you are measuring distance, you use the scale of the map. Remember, learners, we've got two maps, which is a topographical map and also an orthophoto map. The scale of those maps are not the same. When you are using a topographical map, our scale for all maps in South Africa, it is 1:15,000. Then, if you are using an orthophoto map, the scale is 1:10,000. Now, let's say you are measuring a distance between 2 points. In front of you, you are having a map. Then you are asked to calculate the distance between B, as you can see on the map, and C. Now, what is happening is that you need to measure between those points from B and also from C. Now, when you are calculating, because this is a topographical map, you have to multiply by 15,000, which is the scale of all maps in South Africa. Then you have to convert that into kilometers, because your answer should be in kilometers when you are calculating distance. So the distance between B and C, as you can see, it is 4.8 centimeters. Then it means that you have to multiply that 4.8 centimeters by 0.5 kilometers. Then you will get your answer. Again, for instance, in this map of Huguenot, you've got to measure between the station, there is the station, and also you have to measure from the station up to another station at Dal Josaphat. The distance between Huguenot and Josaphat, as it has been shown, it is 5.3 centimeters. Remember, you have to multiply by the scale of the map, which is 1:50,000. So we know that when you are measuring, you have to convert those centimeters into kilometers, because every answer for a distance should be in kilometers. So it's 5.3 centimeters from the station A to station B, which is Huguenot Station and Dal Josaphat. So when you are multiplying, it's 5.3 centimeters multiplied by 50,000 divided by 100,000. Why 100,000? Because there are 100,000 centimeters in a kilometer. So your answer, surely it will be 2.65 kilometers. So when you are marked at the marking center, you are given marks for the measurement, which is 1 mark, and then for the conversion, and lastly for the answer. So the answer, the marks for the distance, it is only 3 marks. You need to understand that. Then let's move back again to when you are using a an orthophoto map, instead of multiplying by 50,000, you need to use 10,000, because all maps in South Africa, in an orthophoto map, they use 10,000 centimeters. So you'll follow the same procedure. You multiply by 0.1 or 10,000, then you'll get your answer. Then let's move to an area. An area is a two-dimensional space between two boundaries. Now, when you are measuring an area, make sure that you measure first the longest side, which is your length. There is your longest side. And then, secondly, you need to measure your breadth, which is the shortest side. In terms of what we are having in front of us, we are having the length, which is about 5 centimeters. And then the breadth is about 3 centimeters. Then also again, in this calculation, you have to make sure that you multiply by the scale of the map. The scale of the map, of all maps in South Africa, it is, if you are using a topographical map, it is 50,000. And then if you are using an orthophoto map, it is 10,000. For instance, here, it is 50,000. So you multiply by 50,000 divided by 100,000, so as to get your answer in kilometers. So the length of this area, it is 2.5 kilometers. And the breadth, it was 3 centimeters. Then you multiply it by the scale, and then you get 1.5 kilometers. So please make sure that you listen, you read carefully to the instruction from the examiner. Now, what is happening is that learners tend not to give the answer in the units that are expected by the examiner. Now, what is happening here? The area of this map, it is 2.5 kilometers multiplied by 1.5 kilometers, which is the length and the breadth. And your final answer will be 3.75 square kilometers. Why? Because the area may be needed in square kilometers. So it means you need to multiply a kilometer by a kilometer. Then let's move to the third calculation, which is on gradient. And gradient is a topic which is always challenging to most of the learners. But firstly, what you need to understand is that when you are measuring a gradient, you need to look for those indicators of height when you are calculating. In a map, whenever you are calculating, you need to make sure that you know the contour lines. So here we've got the contour line, which is 760 meters, and another one at 720 meters. That's the first one, the first indicator. Secondly, we've got the second indicator for the height in a map. It is the trig station. A trig station has got 2 numbers in it. That's where the learners usually have a problem. The number on top of the trig represents the number of the trig, which is, in this case, we've got 72, which means this is trig station number 72. The number at the bottom, it is 877.9, which indicates the height of that trig station. Please, learners, make sure that you understand what I'm talking about, because that's where you lose your marks. Thirdly, we've got the spot height. Now, when we're talking about the spot height, there is spot height 855 and also spot height 681. This also indicates the height in a map. The last indicator, it is the benchmark. Now, when we are talking about the benchmark, it means that we are referring to that part, that indicator. In terms of this map, the height, it is 7.33. And then those are the indicators where, when you are calculating a gradient, you need to be aware of. Now, what is the general rule when you are calculating a gradient? A gradient has got a ratio. It is in ratio form when you come to a final answer. Now, let's first try to explain what a gradient is. A gradient is the steepness of the slope. How steep the slope is as you are moving up the vertical height. Now, it means that it is the ratio between the vertical height and the equivalent distance. Now, we are looking at that feature. There is the vertical height. That's what we are talking about. You are looking at the ratio between the vertical height and the distance you are moving. There is a vertical height, and then we said that the gradient is the ratio between the vertical height and the distance, which is equivalent to. Now, what is happening is that it means you need to have your answer in ratio form. There should be no units at the end. Now, the general rule when you are calculating the gradient is that if your answer in terms of ratio is 1:10, it means that the slope is steep. Secondly, if the answer in terms of the ratio form is more than 10, 1:11, for example, it means that the slope is gentle. So that is the difference in terms of the gradient when we are measuring it. There it is. It is steep in that 1:1.5, and then it is gentle where it is 1:20. I hope you understand. Now let's calculate the gradient between trig beacon 72 and also spot height 162. You need to make sure that you put your ruler straight from the point of the trig beacon at the center, then also up to the spot height. Then you will have your correct answer. So the gradient is, in terms of the formula, you know that it is height divided by distance. Now, secondly, what you need to do, you need to find the difference between the 2 points, which means you minus between the highest point and the lowest point. For example, the trig beacon here is 173.6 meters minus the spot height. The value of the spot height is 162 meters. So the difference between the 2 points is 11.6 meters. Now the second stage, it means we have to calculate the distance between the 2 points. You put your ruler correctly. It should be straight. Now, when we have measured here, we've got 5.2 centimeters. So that 5.2 centimeters that you got between the 2 points, you need to multiply again by using the scale, which means this is a topographical map. So it's 1:50,000. So there is our 50,000 divided by 100,000. Then we got 2.6 kilometers. Then our height is in meters, which is 11.6 meters. Then we need to change the 2.6 kilometers, which is the distance, 2 meters again. Then it means we have to multiply that 2.6 meters by 1,000 so that we move 2 meters again. So it will be 2,600 meters in terms of our distance. So what does this mean? This means that at the end, you are having 11.6 meters divided by 2,600 meters, which means we have the same units. Now, we have to simplify. This means that when you are calculating, you will get 1 is to 224.13. So 11.6 divided by 11.6, 2,600 meters divided by 11.6. So we use the answer that we got from the distance to divide the height and also the distance so that we get the full answer. Lastly, let's get to magnetic declination. What is magnetic declination? Magnetic declination, it is the angle between the true north and the magnetic north, measured in degrees Celsius. Then what is the method that we use when we are calculating the magnetic declination? This is a short question. In most of the years, in the previous years, magnetic declination has been there. Now you need to work out the difference between the years that you are asked to calculate for and the date given on the map. Then you multiply the years with the annual rate of change, which is the ASIM, annual rate of change, IRC. And then we've got two directions. There is a movement to the east of the true north, and also there is movement to the west of the true north in terms of the annual rate of change. What you need to understand, if the annual rate of change is to the east, it means you are going to add what you got. And then if the movement of the annual rate of change is to the west, it means you are going to subtract. Then this means that the angle between the true north and the magnetic north, when it was moving to the east, the angle was decreasing. And when it was moving to the west, the angle was increasing. Now, for instance, we've got here a question where you were asked to calculate a magnetic declination for 2009. Now, the information that was given on a map was that magnetic declination was 23 degrees 53 minutes west of the true north in July 2002. Then the annual rate of change was 6 minutes westwards. So you have to find the difference between 2009, which is the year that you were asked to calculate for, and 2002. Now the difference was 7 years. So it means that you have to multiply the annual rate of change, which was 6 minutes west, by 7 years, which is the difference. Thirdly, what you got as an answer, it is 42 minutes west, which is 6 times 7. So what do you need to do? Because the movement was to the west, it means that we need to add the change. Now, the magnetic declination was 23 degrees 53 minutes. So you need to add that 42 minutes. So what we get is 23 degrees 95 minutes. Whenever you are calculating, you know for a fact that we don't have 95 minutes. And we know that in 60 minutes, there is 1 degree, which means in that 95 minutes, there is a 1 degree, which is 60 minutes. So we cannot leave it at 95. We need to make sure that we take that 1 degree for 60 minutes and add to another degree, which means it will be 1 degree plus 23 degrees, which makes 24 minutes. Then you will remain with 35 minutes from that 95. So your final answer will be 24 degrees, 35 minutes west of the true north. There is another example where you were asked in 2023 to calculate the magnetic declination for Gqeberha. Now, what happened was that it was easy for the learners because they were given 2023 and then the information was in 2021. So the difference between those years, it was only 2 years. And look at the marks, because it's only 4 marks. So the learner was given a mark for the mean annual rate of change, which was 12 minutes westwards. And also you have to multiply that 12, which is the difference, by 2. Which means it gives you 24 minutes, another mark. And then the magnetic declination, you have to add because the movement was to the west. So for that sign, which is an addition, which clearly shows that you understand what we are talking about, you get a mark. And for the final answer, outside, you need to have west of the true north because your answer is always on the west of the true north. The last question is, what is the purpose of calculating the magnetic declination? Why do we have to calculate magnetic declination? It is because we want to determine the position of the true north. That's why we are busy calculating the magnetic declination, so you get a 1 mark. What is important, learners? At the end, you need to make sure that it's where you get marks because it's only 30 marks and that's where we expect you to have all the marks. You need to make sure that you measure the distance accurately. If ever you don't, it means you're going to lose marks. Secondly, you need to understand or know all the formulas. And luckily, nowadays, the examiners are giving formulas in the question paper. Thirdly, you need to use the correct scale. I'm sure you heard me, I've been emphasizing on the scale, whether it is a topographical map or it is an orthophoto map. Fourthly, do not only write down the answer, but you need to follow and write down all the steps because there are marks for the steps. Also, you need to use a calculator. Make sure that you have a calculator so that you can be able to calculate. Do not rush, but work accurately. Always use the correct units. If it's a kilometer, it must be a kilometer. And then if it is a square kilometer, it must be a square kilometer, depending on what you are calculating. Make sure that you have worked correctly. Remember, learners, practice makes perfect. When you are getting to the exam room, that's all that you need. You need an eraser, you need a ruler, you need a magnifying glass if there is a need, a calculator, a protractor, and a pencil. And I wish you good luck. Viewers, we have come to the end of our lesson. You can leave your questions on the comments. Don't forget to leave your name of your school so that we can give shout outs. Please share, recommend, and subscribe to our YouTube channel. Thank you for watching. See you on the next lesson. Thank you. Bye.